For those of you that don't know, that's Marine Corps cadence. If you've ever been to boot camp in the Marine Corps, I know they say they have it in the Army as well. I just, being polite, think they fucking lie. Definitely doesn't sound like that. That's good Marine Corps cadence, man. And we've got a great guest. Eli, I'm going to let you introduce him because you got his rank correct today.
Oh, man.
So I'm going to let you introduce him here in a second, but it's such a pleasure, man, because we've never had a Marine Corps drill instructor on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And he's from my era. Excuse me, I'm from his era. Let me get that correct, right? Before I get fucking smacked on this. But it's going to be a great time. We've got who I would call Staff Sergeant Nichols. Eli calls him Sergeant Nichols. No. Apparently, like that S just doesn't mean shit anymore, you know?
I know. No, I thought I was being so good. I was talking to Will last night about the podcast today. And I said, hey, tomorrow we've got Sergeant Nichols on. I'm super excited. And he was like,
and I said, ooh.
I'm telling. Yeah, he did. And I thought I was being so good with the sergeant. But
here's what's so cool, man. I've been watching Staff Sergeant Nichols stuff on YouTube and on Instagram for a long time. It's motivating. It's cool. He shows a lot of stuff of just like how interesting boot camp can be. They actually had, come to find out, a production, ironically, embedded in the Marine Corps and following Staff Sergeant Nichols and some of the other drill instructors while he was there. But what's great is the business stuff that he's doing now. Things he's doing with F45, coaching, speaking, just a lot of really cool stuff. And I get really jazzed up about promoting, supporting, and just speaking to other veterans and, you know, and I guess especially other Marines that have transitioned out, because I know how hard the transition is as far as like just finding a new identity and what you're going to dive into, and where do these skill sets apply to something new, and do they even apply to something new, and should I have gotten out, should I have not gotten out, what the fuck, right? Like, I kind of know how that feels, so I admire anyone that's come out and just continues to excel, but they still embody their Marine Corps spirit and they're successful. I'm curious about how they've done it, because I still feel like, as far as we are in the game, I'm still a student of it. But without further ado, Staff Sergeant Nichols. It's good to see you, brother. I'm sure you got a first name by now. You seem so cool. Eli was like, man, he seems so nice. And I was like, shut up.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, I've been out of the Marine Corps longer than I actually served, right? And so as you mature and as you grow up and you get a little wiser, a little bit smarter, the way I used to carry myself in my 20s should not be the same as I carry myself in the 40s. We talked about that before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
It's just, you grow up, you mature. If I'm always yelling, let's just say I would eventually get tuned out. So flip the script. Now I just talk monotone, but if and when, don't get it twisted. If and when I need to turn it up, I got you.
You got a good knife hand. Someone calls you a sergeant, it's going down, right? But I'm curious, man, because I want to talk about your business. I want to talk about everything you're successful at, but we can't not talk about the Marine Corps. We can't not talk about just boot camp and how fun that was. Fun. I'm using quotes. If you guys are watching the video, you can see my fucking quote fingers. How fun it was. And just what got you in. Like, I'm curious about, man, like, what got you in the Marine Corps? What'd you do while you're in the Marine Corps? And we'll get into kind of boot camp after that, because I know drill instructor's not the first thing that you did, obviously, but curious about your story, man. Like, where to start? Where'd you grow up? What were you about? Like, what got you in the Marine Corps?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Louisiana. I graduated high school in 1994. I had no clue what I wanted to do. Had no mentors, had no roadmap. I hated school. I just wanted to, get out of high school and figure it out. I got out of high school, and my brother signed up in the delay entry program for the Marine Corps. Originally, I was going to go into the Army, but for whatever reason, I didn't like the Army recruiter, didn't like what they were preaching. And so I was like, I'm just going to do my own thing. Yeah, and then about 2 weeks before my brother went to boot camp, his recruiter happened to stop by our house. I just happened to be there. He came to see my family. The recruiter came to see my family and my brother. And they look over to me and say, hey, Michael, what are you doing with your life? I'm like, I'm trying to figure it out, right? And he goes, look, I'll give you $1,000 if you go to boot camp with your brother. I said, $1,000? That's like $1 million. I'm a Louisiana boy. I'm like, $1,000? Where do I sign?
Yeah.
And so two weeks before he went to boot camp, I basically was rapid fire through the entire process. Taking down the MEPS, take my ASVAB, take my fitness test, swearing, and next thing you know, 2 weeks later, I'm in boot camp with my brother. And the crazy part about it is 3 days in the boot camp and receiving, My brother slipped a disc in his back, got kicked out of the Marine Corps, and here I am 29 and a half years later.
Good God. But before that happened, you're 3 days in boot camp going, hey, where the fuck's my money? Where's
No,
that?
I actually
$1,000.
like I didn't even look. At the end of the day, when I was in boot camp, the last thing I wanted to do is bring any attention to myself, because you got to remember, I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know, fast forward, here I am almost 30 years later. I share my experience with the Marine Corps with other people so they can get acclimated before they show up.
Sure.
I had no plan. I had no clue.
So what you
I
fall
was
in love with?
completely lost.
You're going through boot camp. Obviously, you excel in the Marine Corps. You know, not everybody chooses to be a drill instructor, whether that's your thing or not. I'll tell you this much. That's exactly where you start making Marines. Everybody that's gone through the Marine Corps has a special relationship with one of their drill instructors. It's never not happened. At least one of them, it's just like, man, that guy did it for me. For me, it was drill instructor Sergeant Graham. We'll get into that fucking guy in a minute. I love that guy. Now, and everybody has that, you know, like, so you have no idea. You're like, $1,000, awesome. You're in boot camp. Like, when did you start? Like, I guess for me, I had a different experience because my dad was in the Marine Corps. I come from a long line of military, and you know, everyone's heard I didn't know how to swim until, dude, you'd have loved me as a recruit. I did not know how to swim until boot camp, and I'd never held or shot a rifle until boot camp. But I was high shooter out of boot camp. I ended up being the lead counter sniper instructor for division schools at Urban Assault Leaders course. I was a fast Marine. Did some cool stuff, you know, and just enjoyed it. But what I fell in love with when I was, because even though my dad was a Marine, like you hear stories about the Marine Corps and different stuff, and yes, that's nostalgic, and yes, you kind of have a thought of that and whatnot, but it's still, that's not like, I didn't fall in love with the Marine Corps because of like the stories my old man would tell me or that I'd hear around like the campfires. Everyone falls in love, you know, in the Marine Corps, like for their own reasons, whether they don't know it and they jump in for $1,000 or whether you do know it. It's just, those stories you hear are not going to be yours. I remember this was like, you were already going back to the fleet. You're preparing for Iraq when when I'm actually in boot camp. It's February of 2005. You transition off the drill field, beginning of 2004. You're getting ready to go to Iraq, and I'm in fucking boot camp. And you guys know when you play taps at night, right? And like before taps would play, you got to be in your bunks, quiet. Don't even fucking move, right? But some of our drill instructors would come out and they would like tell a story about their experience. Either I think it was like OIF 1. I think 2003, 2004s were like some things, and then I was not until 05, and they would tell some stories. They would talk about Marines, and you're literally laying in your bunk like, dude, Marines are overseas right now fighting war. And then you'd hear stories about these guys, and it was so different because as much as we pride ourselves in the Marine Corps on our history, World War I, World War II, all these things, and our heroes, right? Chesty Puller, all of them, right? There's something to be said about like you're going in and like the heroes you're hearing about are the guys that are over there right now or just died right now. And hearing Marine Corps stories right before they play, like, dude, everyone's laying down, everyone's quiet. A drill instructor would come out and like tell us a story, tell us about a Marine, walk off, and then taps would play. There's just something about like going to bed at night like that, dude. It got to my soul, you know. So that's what really hit me in boot camp beyond all the physical and everything else was like, I get to be a part of this. Holy shit, man. Like I don't even know if I could describe it well enough. I'm probably not doing it any justice, but you're laying there like, man, I'm going to be a part of this club. Holy shit. You know, like what, like you have no idea, right? You get into like, what did you start falling in love with the Marine Corps? Was it during boot camp? Was it after? Like, what really did it for you?
It was during boot camp. After the first 3 or 4 weeks, I realized in the beginning, you know, like shut your mouth, just do what you're told, humble yourself, be coachable, be teachable. And then when you do that and you start to change and grow and think different, I started to mimic what my drill instructors were doing and saying. So back in the day, we used to have like a week long of mess duty, and I caught myself mimicking, like calling cadence or speaking the way that they spoke. So the onset of becoming a Marine Corps drill instructor was when I was in boot camp in 1995. I like, okay, this is something I could see myself doing in the future.
Aren't those guys cool? Like I hate the jock on, like you're going through boot camp and you hear somebody like sing cadence like that. It's like there's just a swagger to a fucking Marine Corps drill instructor. And it's like it's so crazy. It's almost like I'm sure it's talked about with like serial killers and cults. Because the same guys that are like fucking you up and wrecking your life every minute of the day, you also just like see so nostalgic and look up to all to say. It's not like some Stalin shit. Right, Eli, is that from like
some
Stalin?
like 007 stuff?
It's crazy.
Like that, yeah.
No, it was awesome, and I feel like when I describe boot camp, sometimes to folks, it's like it's the funniest place where no one's allowed to laugh. There's so much stuff that just happens, man. Like, not that we need to get into it right this second, but I mean, we're here. But like the first time, you love your senior drill instructor because he's daddy and he gives you mail. Gives you candy every once in a while. And I just remember, dude, I remember like the first couple weeks, dude, like it's crazy. Not just, everyone talks about Black Friday, whatever, dude. It's like weeks of just nonstop. And senior drill instructors finally coming back in and we're all online after taking our, I think we had just taken our shower. So you're online for hygiene check, correct? They're checking for like, hangnails and warts and ringworm. Like they got to see your hands and feet. So you're in your sandals and you just got your little towel around you, and they walk up to you and you got to say, good evening, sir. Recruit Grimes, 0300 infantry regular, sir. Right. Like 0300 is like, I'm an infantryman regular. So I'm full active duty, not reservist. And man, we finally, for the first fucking time, Staff Sergeant, excuse me for not calling you your name. We finally get through evening BDR. We fucking finally do it for once. And then our other drill instructor's like, cool, stay where you're at. Like senior comes in and our scribe, this motherfucker, our scribe is on the edge. He's at the very front, like, and he has to fucking pee bad. And he's shaking, dude, and you're supposed to be at attention and stuff. And like, he starts trying to like grab his dick and other recruits are like, fucking stop, right? Like, get at attention, like we're getting mail and candy tonight, dude. Like it's red panty night in boot camp. Stop it, right? And this dude commences to just piss all over the floor, bro.
No.
Oh my God.
Right when senior walked in.
Oh no.
And dude, I've never in my life seen something go so peaceful. Evening BDR, everyone said their shit appropriately. Everyone got checked. Nothing happened. To just seeing a senior, I'd never seen senior mad yet, right? Staff Sergeant Pena Mesa, that was his name. Never seen him mad before. Dude, he's like worse than all of them. And you don't expect it because he's just never showing that role. He's got a different role as a senior drill instructor. Bro, it was like Noah's Ark in like a minute with like water getting thrown down the squad bay. And dude, we have to mop this whole thing, bro. And like, we're throwing, dude, every footlocker got emptied. Every one of them. We have to shove everyone's clothes, everything into the back of the squad bay. Dude, it looked like Mount Iwo Jima, bro. Just a mountain of clothes and footlockers and like, but what was funny, dude, is like, we're getting fucked. And that same scribe that like pissed. And it's, dude, the whole squad bay is flooded now with water and soap and everything. And like, we're throwing shit. And like, when they want you to stop, Eli, to listen, right? They say 0, correct?
Yeah.
Am I correct? Am I right? It's like they'd like, hey, 0, and like everybody has to freeze. You don't stop, slow down, get to a position of attention.
Stop.
If you're in full sprint, you're just gonna stop like you're in.
Yeah.
And the kid that pissed is like losing his towel. This guy's behind him. They're like slipping on the water as they were still throwing shit into this pile of clothes that we had. But they had the guidon in their hand because they had to throw the guidon onto the pile to like really piss us off. Because your guidon is like your squad flag.
Okay.
Nothing happens to it.
Yeah.
They're forcing us to like fuck our own flag up.
Yep.
And like literally as they're running the flag over, one of our drill instructors like tells 0, everyone has to freeze. And dude, these dudes are almost bucket fucking naked with the guidon. And like as they have to freeze, it looks like they're stabbing it into the pile like Iwo Jima, the flag from Iwo Jima. Like, bro, I've never seen drill instructors look at something so like quote unquote gay and hilarious all at the same time, dude. And like if you fucking laugh, they'll murder you. But the way they would laugh and like some of their jokes, I swear to God, you could get drill instructors to go on tour and be comedians and they do it. Like they crush it.
I bet.
Oh my God. Like you got any funny stories?
We just come out and say stuff because like you can only say so many things that you're so used to saying, and then you see some of the craziest crap you've ever seen in your life, and you mumble stuff out, and then it becomes like this ditty or quote or something stupid. Like when I was a senior, well, let me back up. Way before I was a senior, we would have this thing where when the recruits really pissed us off, we would have Big Bird come out. And Big Bird is we would take laundry detergent and we would throw it all over the recruits, all throughout the squad bay. And then we'd take the feather pillows and we would bust the feather pillows up and throw it in the air.
Oh my God.
And next thing you know, you got feathers everywhere. The portholes are closed. And basically we steam out the windows.
Oh my gosh.
And then the cool part about Big Bird is when you go outside to march to chow, all you see is feathers just coming off of everybody because it's on their clothes and it's stuck to the Tide detergent. So as a senior, I'm like, okay, you guys want to freaking piss me off? I guess we want Big Bird to come out today, right? They're like, no, sir. Because they know once Big Bird comes out, we're doing Iwo Jima. We're taking foot lockers. We're dumping everything. 2 sheets in a blanket coming online. Portholes are being closed. Everything in the middle of Squad Bay. The guidon in the middle, Iwo Jima, Big Bird,
if you do Big Bird, I've never. By the way, I'm so glad that did not happen to me. That's so good. They might have outlawed it, but here's what's embarrassing. When you're going through boot camp, everyone knows everybody's getting fucked up. Yeah. But if you got to walk outside with feathers all over you in front of other squads,
it was so embarrassing.
Embarrassing.
Like we would do it to embarrass them. Because, when you throw laundry detergent on them and you bust the feathers, they stick to your clothes, right? So you actually start looking like Big Bird. And then when you're marching
and you're
down
sweaty, the
highway,
detergent starts getting wet. Up. Yeah. Oh, dude, it's amazing.
My first senior cycle, I think it was my first or second senior cycle, my recruits did something pissed me off. I was like, okay, Big Bird's coming out, drill instructors, kill him. And I basically left. I left for the day.
What other job do you get to say that, Eli?
Right.
Where senior drill instructor, you have 3 to 4 drill instructors per squad of 75 Marines.
Okay.
You're going to have a junior, which is like your kill hat, your newest drill instructor. Okay. You've got a second to newest. Can't remember what they call him. Your second to senior is the guy that runs all your drill. He's doing everything he has to do with the recruits to earn his next spot as a senior. So he'd be leading an entire 75 Marines as a senior.
Okay.
Senior's the boss of that squad for drill instructors. Where else in this world can you go? Employees, a.k.a. drill instructors. Kill them, dude, and just walk out. It might have been in the mafia, but like you go to prison for that shit. No, you get promoted for that. Like, amazing.
Yeah. All right, so I basically was pissed off at the recruits. I think if I remember right, I think it was like initial drill. They did a crappy job. And I basically told the drill instructors, hey, kill them. I'm gone. And that's a Saturday. So I leave, and about 30 minutes to an hour later, I get a phone call from my company first sergeant. He said, hey, senior, where are you at? I'm on my way home. He said, you need to turn your ass around right now. You come back to the squad bay. I don't know what you told those drill instructors to do in your house.
But they're killing
the house. But everything is effed up. Come back and un-eff it. You know what I mean? So I had to turn around, and let's just say it was a long day putting the house back together.
Were they like sacrificing the weakest boot?
Oh, always. I mean, look, at the end of the day, our job is to push people to the point of failure so they can come back stronger.
Right there.
If I can get you to your breaking point, if I can get you there to the point where you have no choice but to humble yourself, then I can coach you, then I can teach you, then I can mentor you, and I can develop you into a basically trained Marine.
So now we're getting into like 100. So like all jokes aside, I know we're making fun of like us idiots going through boot camp, but now we're going to get to like, there's a literally this is the best phrase for it. There is a method to the madness. And it's like, you can like when you're trying to train yourself, or if you're not like in adversity, you're going to quit at your breaking point. It's synonymous. Everybody has a breaking point, and at their own breaking point, we tend to just quit. That's the limit that we know. That's the limit that we can self-induce to oneself until we're introduced to more. And that's what boot camp is. Like you're going to break, and then they're going to take you past your breaking point. And then past your own breaking point is where you are born again into a new perspective of, hey, dude, you're not even half of what you thought you could be. And you're like, man, there's so much more in me than I thought I had, because you're not going to push yourself past your own breaking point. It's just, in my opinion, the way I use that language is it's impossible. You get broke, they push you past, whether it's physical or mental. Like, depending on who's going through boot camp, everyone has their thing. Some it's more mental, some it's more physical. Once you get past that point, and then drill instructors show you through discipline, through accountability, through you don't have a fucking choice, that's where you start to really realize how much you've got in the tank. Like when everyone hears like David Goggins, right? Not that he was a Marine, SEAL, cool. But when he says, you know, when people give up, they're typically 40% capacity, not 100. People give up around, in his opinion, they give up around 40%. And a lot of people have read David's book and stuff like that. And like, but that's what he's getting at. But what it means is like, how are you going to get to the other 60% potential you have? I don't think you can truly do that to yourself unless you've ever been introduced to it by someone else that's brought you past it. And that's what drill instructors are for.
Yeah. Look, the reality of it is failure is inevitable. Progress in life is optional, meaning that in order to succeed, you have to fail.
No.
And I only succeed in my life because I failed over and over and over again. Then you become successful, you know. And as a new drill instructor and as a third hat drill instructor, our job is to push these kids to the point of failure. When we get them to the point of failure, I would walk into the senior drill instructor duty hut and say, "Hey, senior, you're gonna have to go talk to him because I broke him." Mm-hmm. And here's what we have to realize: the power of words could change the trajectory of our lives, right? As a new DI, my words is, "You suck. I can't believe you're here. I can't believe you signed up. You're a piece of shit," so on and so forth,
sure.
Right? Well,
your mother's a piece of shit.
Your mother
break
them down. We want to break them mentally, like, and start doubting themselves. And then the J or the senior will jump in and say, "Hey, why do you think he's yelling at you? Because you're moving too slow." Like, so, and then it goes from the negative to the positive, and it almost like it's level to level to level. Like break, we go forward 2 steps, go back 1, then 2 more steps forward, and back 1. It's the process of life, and that's the beauty of the military. You know, like when I was a drill instructor, I came up with this ditty: put as much structure in place to eliminate as much failure as possible. What does that mean? Let me give you a perfect example. You're out driving your car, and you come to a red light that is just blinking, right? Just blinking. That means all the red lights in the four stop are just blinking, and it just becomes chaotic, right? There's no structure. You go, then I go, and it becomes, you know, things just become chaotic. But when you have green lights, red lights, there's structure, light kind of flows together. And that's what we're doing in recruit training. There's a 13-week training schedule. Recruits show up. We methodically take them through that process. And as new drill instructors, we want them to get them to the breaking point as quickly as possible, because as soon as we get them there, we can turn them over to the senior. Senior can give them some words of wisdom and insight and speak some positive life into it. He's just trying to help you. He wants you to become better. And that yin and yang is the process of life. We need the negative and we need the positive.
The dichotomy of leadership, man. Like just how drill instructors communicate behind the scenes and use each other to like help everybody become better. But we're also like we were talking before the podcast, right? But we're also like, I'm getting rid of half of these motherfuckers. Oh, we got 75. Oh, 30 of you hoes are gone right now, right? And like, I remember like even like recruiting offices, like you walk in a recruiting office and just say something while they're talking and you interrupt, they're like, "Get the fuck out. This ain't for you. Get out." And it's like, there's some like recruiting tactics to just like athletic alpha dudes that got something to prove. There's a different way to push them. There's a different way to do things. And, you know, maybe it's frowned upon nowadays. I don't know. Can't speak on it. I do know that like, if you guys have goals as drill instructors mentally or take a little bit of pride in how many guys you can get to quit, right?
Yeah. Let me give you a cool story. When I was, look, my first 3-4 cycles, dude, I was was super intense, right? Like the expectation was,
And a cycle, by
your
the way,
job
is
to
taking
break them.
right. And a cycle, just so everyone knows, if you're not familiar with the Marine Corps, a cycle would be taking
13 weeks.
Yep, taking a platoon of Marines through boot camp for 13 weeks. So first 3 cycles of boot camp is what you're talking about.
Yeah. So like on my second cycle, third cycle, I'm a third hat, and I would play these games with these recruits. Like no one's around. I'm running the deck, right? And I would get so pissed off at these kids. I was like, get your sea bag out, pack your foot locker, put it on your back, get on the quarterdeck. You're getting dropped. There's no way that you're graduating from recruit training with me. And so I would have like 4 or 5 kids standing on the quarterdeck with their pack on their back. And the senior walks in. The senior would walk in and be like, what are you 5 doing? These recruits are getting dropped, sir. Who told you you're getting dropped? Drill Instructor Sergeant Nichols, sir. What the? So I was dropping recruits, just waiting on the senior to come back and save them. You know what I mean? And one of the coolest stories I've ever had. So check this out. This is completely against the standard operating procedure. Matter of fact, if I would have got caught doing this, I would have probably been in big trouble. And it's been 20 years, so hopefully I'm past that.
We're not live. We're not live, by the way, Staff Sergeant. So if for some reason you change your mind after you tell the story, Eli can cut it out for you, 100%.
So check this out. So we went up north. I was a senior. We went up north. We came back from up north, and I still had MREs inside of my whiskey locker. And two of my recruits snuck in there in the middle of the night right before graduation. Dude. So this is 1 week before graduation. They ate food. I found out about it. I packed them up. It was a Friday morning when I found out. I packed them up. I act like I'm dropping them. I sent them back to Black Friday with another company, and they thought they had to do boot camp all over again. So I picked them up, dropped them off, and they went back to day one. And then the next morning, I came and picked them up. They were so happy to see me. They thought they were going to have to do 3 more months of recruit training.
They're lucky they didn't have to.
And I, honestly, like at the end of the day, like I was the type of guy, like I'm only going to be a prick to you.
But it's a character flaw. You lie, cheat, or steal in boot camp. They are going to be that brash because they're trying to like correct these character flaws you have within yourself. So
imagine going through Black Friday with a brand new platoon and you graduate in 1 week, but you have to go through recruit training. And so I dropped them. They went through Black Friday again, and I picked them up the next day. They were so happy to see me. They thought I was like Jesus walked through the door.
So everyone knows Black Friday in the Marine Corps in boot camp is not half off of everything at your outlet stores the night after Thanksgiving, right?
I was about to ask.
It's not Christmas shopping, right? So Black Friday is so when you get to boot camp, typically you get there beginning of the week, and you're just in intake. So you have drill instructors, but they're not like they're kind of in charge of you, but you're not to your platoon yet. You're just getting there. They're getting your medical records organized. They're shaving your fucking head, normal stuff. And then when you get to introduced to your drill instructors and who you're going to be with, unless you drop out or get hurt or something, you're going to be with them for the duration of your 13 weeks. And that
happens on Friday afternoon.
Happens on Friday. And they call it Black Friday because they kill you.
That's the first day you officially die.
Get with your drill instructors. Gotcha. And it's like, here's my babies. But here's the deal. We're beating up drill instructors with how devilish they are, right? Like rightfully so. But here's what's great. Like one of my favorite stories from boot camp is never shot a rifle till boot camp. We're on the range. We snap in for a week and do all that stuff, right? And you're practicing. And then we get to the live fire portion. And I remember sitting on the ammo can, a little nervous, and drill instructor Sergeant Graham walks up and he's like, Grimes, what the fuck's wrong with you? And I was trying to speak in third person, right? Like this recruit. He's like, and they're a little bit nicer to you on the rifle range because you have a loaded weapon. They don't want you hurting somebody, right? Sure. Like that's the one time they do kind of like chill. Excuse me. And he's like, just talk to me. I'm like, I've never shot a rifle, sir. And he like kneels down. He's like, what's the fucking problem? And it's like, well, dude, I didn't say dude, but I'm like, sir, like some of these other guys, like they grew up hunting with their dad, et cetera, et cetera. And I haven't. And he's like, Grimes, you have no bad habits.
Yep.
just do what I say, when I say, how I say, to the best of your ability, and you're going to crush. I fucking love guys like you. And then he just walks off. The paradigm shift that happened,
The mindset,
dude.
yep.
But it's the environment that sets it, because you're trying your hardest and you want to be a Marine and you're doing all you can. And one of the guys you look up to most in life at that moment said, I love guys like you. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh shit, like I'm not going to learn the wrong way to do this. Mm-hmm. Like your circle, especially if you're new into business or new into whatever it may be, like it matters so much, because it's like, yeah, hey, I don't have bad habits. So if I'm in the right place to learn something, like how to shoot a rifle from a Marine, like, hey, you're probably in a pretty good spot. I ended up being high shooter out of boot camp and did some cool stuff through my career. But it started there. And it started with just a young kid, man, that just had somebody tell him, you actually have the advantage.
Yep.
You know, like,
Yep.
How powerful is that? But it does have to be set by the atmospherics of like what's going on, and you're not getting saved by your mommy or your daddy, and you are fucking trying your ass off, and you are getting fucked up every day. And then this moment of a guy actually believing in you, when this whole time through boot camp, you don't even think they believe in anything or anyone. Like they're just killing you. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, motherfucker. I actually love guys like you. I don't have to unfuck you. I'm just going to, right? And like, wow. And like, dude, that was so pinnacle for me. Dude, I tell that story. I've been on some large stages, small stages, large stages. Every stage, I find a way to tell that story. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the small, like I've been praying, like, cause I do speaking at military events. Like next week I'll be in Myrtle Beach speaking to, a veteran organization. I'll be in Las Vegas the following week at a military conference. And then I'll be in Tennessee in November to speak to high school students. I always just find, like, I've been praying, like, Lord, what do you want me to share with, the people that I have an opportunity to make an impact? And it really kind of boils down to the power of words, knowing when to inject positive, when to inject negative, when to speak life, the power, life and death are in the power of the tongue. We can change the trajectory of somebody's life by just speaking one positive word. And that's the beauty of leadership, understanding how and when to articulate that message.
Yeah.
And so one word can change the trajectory of your life.
And it's like,
don't cry to quit, cry to keep going. Like that
100%.
little simple thing. Don't cry to quit, cry to keep going.
And see, that's the lesson.
Progress is optional.
That's the lesson that people have to understand, because when I hear that from, I still call him drill instructor Sergeant Graham. I'm sure he's like, Will, my name's Kevin. I don't know. Right? Like, but here's the thing. I have to be susceptible to that moment. Words are powerful. And like that moment was powerful for me, but it was like, here's why. Being a Marine meant something to me. The effort I was giving meant something to me. Doing well in the rifle range and being respected as a Marine, because you all know, like you're going to start getting respect in the Marine Corps from your physical abilities for sure, and how well you shoot. And if you can't shoot, you're like, the Marine Corps prides itself on its riflemen. I was in a moment of like, I'm here, I'm committed, I care about being a Marine, I care about doing well, and then I got that message. A lot of times people get great messages and they're just not in a moment or in a frame of mind of like even receiving, and like, so the lesson here is like, as much as you can gift people with words, you also have to understand of like who you need to be when receiving a moment or when receiving words and what you're going to do with that. Cause I wholeheartedly feel the reason why that meant so much to me was the atmospherics of my commitment and dedication to becoming a Marine, married with a drill instructor that was committed to making the best fucking Marines possible. Mm-hmm. It was a marriage between those two. I'm here to accomplish this and become this, and drill instructor, I'm committed to making the best version of these. You know what I mean? Like there's just something interesting about that relationship. And yeah, it's in the middle of fucking chaos. But just being able to like stand that storm and have some poise and learn how to have some equanimity and apply said skill set to create performance, and it's one of the most powerful things you can have.
Yeah. I when you were sitting there talking, I have this flashback quite often. I was in the high school track team. I ran the 1 mile relay, the 1 mile event, and every time I ran, I came in last place, right? But I was
Yeah.
committed. Like when I
Yeah.
say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. But I was terrible at doing it. But I kept showing up week after week and month after month, and I kept running. And I remember one track meet. I was really discouraged. I already knew I was going to be last place, and I was a couple weeks into track. I was like, man, why am I doing this? This is stupid. And then when I was crossing the finish line, some lady in the crowd, you got to remember this is 35 plus years ago. Some lady in the crowd yelled, "Good job, Michael!" And it almost sent shockwaves through my body that I knew I was last place, but I didn't quit. I didn't give up. I kept showing up week after week, even though I was going to be last place.
Yeah.
And that word of encouragement, encouragement kept me coming back week after week after
You
week.
recognize the
running track.
wins. Yeah. Like I was talking to my daughter about this last night. She plays really good at volleyball and she's playing up. She's a freshman playing university and she's working on some skill set stuff and she's almost too explosive, super athletic, literally jumps almost higher than all these varsity girls, if not higher already as a freshman. But she's working on her arm swing or whatever and striking the ball. And she gets reluctant sometimes and things like that. And sometimes even if she can hit it hard, she's afraid to because like, oh, they might block it, right? And like, it's like, hey, you could time it perfect and jump and hit that ball at its high point and hit the fuck out of it. And they block it. Well, you guys played at 25. Typically, teams win 25 to 21, 25 to 18, which means you guys fucked up 18 times. Or if you lost, you fucked up 25 times because the other team got 25 points. Maybe there's a couple hits in there that were just amazing that you guys couldn't defend. Maybe 3. So you're looking at 21 times a mistake happened on the court. And I'm like, if you're so concerned about being blocked, especially as you're growing into a position, you're going to negate so many wins of timing the ball right, jumping right, hitting a ball at a tie point and striking through it and hitting the fuck out of it. Like there's 5 little wins right there. The outcome you couldn't control. They made a great block, but if you're so focused on that, then you're going to overlook how many wins you just had on getting a great rep. And that was like you, like when she's like, good job. And you're talking about, hey man, I'm staying consistent and I'm trying my hardest at practice and I'm giving my effort during the meet. It's like, there's so many wins there. And that's the game within the game. This is what people have to start understanding is like, hey, if I can win a volleyball game, if I can win the football game, cool. Cherry on top. But there's so many wins of consistency and hard work and grit and progress and overcoming certain things. There's so many wins with the game within the game that you just have to keep your eyes on. And then the whole winning the game will take care of itself if we can recognize these things. But I feel like people get so stuck on the actual superficial game, which is the score or the financial money they're making or not making in business, right? Versus like what we're talking about, this game within the game. And when that's what you're talking about, when this lady encourages you, it highlights everything you have been doing that is great, that will set you up for success in life. And then no, you're just not Usain Bolt. Cool. But there's so many things you took from it.
I mean, think about it. I went from last place in high school to joining the Marine Corps and becoming a top performer, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it just at the right time, just one person saying, basically encouraging not to quit, not to give up. You're doing right. Eventually it will all work out. And I look back at high school, man, I was, there was so many people smarter, faster, better than I was, but I don't know how to quit, right?
Yeah.
Like I would quit, but I don't know how. And so I think that while most people peak in high school or in college, I was just getting started in my early 20s. And I ramped up and, fast forward, I'm 48 years old. I've crushed it out the park when it comes to life, so to speak. And I look back and be like, man, thank God for all the failures.
And just not quitting.
Just the little doses of don't quit, don't give up. You can do it.
And dude,
little
that's
words
the Marine
of
Corps.
encouragement.
Yeah.
Push me forward.
Like you look at so many studs in the Marine Corps they're not necessarily the guy you thought would be a stud. They're not these Greek gods that are super sculpted and buff. And it's not that we don't have super fit Marines that look amazing. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is when you start getting into high achievers in the Marine Corps, they're not necessarily what you think they would look like. They're just these guys that found a way to have some grit and not quit. And by not quitting, they got really good at something. You know, and like they achieve. And this is where I want to get into like your business stuff, right? Because clearly you're speaking. You've got some F-45 stuff that you're doing. I think you're an owner there, correct? And doing some great stuff with that.
I'm the director of military operations for F-45, which is a global franchise. I basically, what I do at F-45 is I do two primary things. Number one is I help with combat readiness. I work on so let me take a step back. When I was preparing my Marines for Iraq in 2006, there was no human performance plan to get my Marines ready for combat. There was no methodical process. And then when I came back from Iraq in January of 2007, 2 months later, I was out of the Marine Corps. There was no transition plan.
Yep.
And so like, God's really shown me I've been working on this for over 14 years. Like, Lord, how can I help with combat readiness and how can I help with transitional readiness? And so for 8 years, I had my own fitness company. I was doing a lot of great things, but I had a small impact compared to the global impact that I saw. After 8 years, God finally gave me peace about closing my fitness business on a Friday. I joined F-45 just to work out with the group on Monday because I need to find a new fitness home. And I fell in love with F-45. And what I saw is they had the infrastructure to give birth to the vision that God gave me, back in 2009. And so I put an executive summary together. F-45 had no military division. I said, hey, I've been doing this for 8 years. Here's the impact I've had. Why don't F-45 look at standing up a Veterans Impact Program? And so essentially I gave my idea away to F-45 and they were like, not only do we love the idea, we would love to pay you to stand up the military division for F-45. So back in 2020, I ended up joining F-45. You got to remember, I did 12 years in the Marine Corps and I did 10 years at the Department of Veterans Affairs. So I did VA disability and compensation for veterans for a decade. So I retired after 22 years of federal service, which morphed into a full-time career in the fitness industry. And fast forward 4.5 years, been with F-45. We've helped over 1,000 service members get out of the military into a career in the fitness industry with F-45. Nice. We've trained them, we've educated them, we've certified them, and we help them transition out of the military in the smooth, regardless if they do it part-time, full-time, or become owners. At the end of the day, I knew that was something I had to solve. And then on the combat readiness side, mission readiness, my vision has always been, okay, F-45 is a premium brand, human performance. When it comes to human performance, it's off the charts. The methodical process that the fitness gurus, the master trainers program. I'm 48 years old. I've been doing F-45 for over 5 years now. I feel like I'm in better shape than when I was in the Marine Corps as a staff sergeant, because back then all we was doing was running, pull-ups, push-ups, and sit-ups. That's it.
Well, and there's no recovery. Like that was the other thing, right? It's like running's not terrible for you. Neither are pull-ups, but like it was like we were just running our fucking dicks in the dirt, dude. Yep. And when you were hurt, it was like get over it. I mean, it was just like it was that versus like just approaching fitness from a tactical standpoint as well as for recovery and things like that, correct?
Yeah. So F-45 is focused on functional training, right? You get cardiovascular, muscle strength, muscle endurance, flexibility, impacts your body composition, the whole holistic approach to fitness.
Right.
So it's like, what if we put F-45 studios on military installations? Because every base has group exercise, right? They have spin classes, yoga, Pilates, whatever. And so I was able to put our first F-45 studio on Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. And since putting that studio on that base, we've trained over 5,000 service members through F-45, Amazing. Which has helped improve their physical fitness tests, their combat readiness tests. I have people that do not run for 6 months, and then they just do F-45, and then they go out and run their PFT because they're not pounding on their legs for 6 months.
And there's a different way to train capacity outside of running.
Yeah, and their fitness scores improve, their combat fitness tests improves. So my job now at F-45 is my vision is to put an F-45 training studio on every military installation around the world, to number one is give servicemen and women access to some of the best training in the world. Number two is when you go to get out of the military and you love fitness, you love people, and you want to convert your military experience into the fitness industry, we can train you, we can educate you, and we can certify you. Like right now in real time, I have 158 active duty service members that are interns at F-45 studios all throughout the United States.
That's great.
And it's just a ripple effect. And, you know, at the end of the day, I love people. I love our servicemen and women. And what's disappointing to me is you get out, don't have a roadmap, and you fall on your sword. I almost fell on my sword when I first got out because I was in real estate. You stepped out when I first got out. I was in real estate, and then the economy back in 2007 crashed. So I went from having a plan to not having a plan.
Yeah.
And I had to figure it out. Thank God I had 12 years of experience as a former drill instructor. I was able to push through the pain of life and get to the other side. But, you know, leadership is not by the words that come out of our mouths, but by our actions. When you get to the top, send the elevator down and pick up other people. They may go to the second floor, the fifth floor. They may come all the way to the top with you. My job as a leader is I'm 48 years old. If I can speak life into you now, when you get to 48, you should be further than I am. If you listen to what I
or at least further than where you were going to be, right? Because not everybody wants to be you or be a high achiever, but at least making them better and having a plan. But it's certain it doesn't have it. And it's interesting when you talk about F-45s being on bases because a lot of times, like the Marine Corps or just military in general, we take pride in like knowing it all. Right? We're going to train Marines how to fight. We're going to train Marines how to train physically, mentally, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, not necessarily. No, like that corporal team leader does not necessarily know shit about fitness. He just knows what he knows, which is like, we're just going to run till we fucking puke and we're going to throw a pack on our back when we do it. And then we're going to come back versus like, you start getting these companies involved that are like subject matter experts at something, right?
Exactly.
F-45, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, now you're bringing America into the influence of our effectiveness with our troops, where it's like, hey, we're getting America to back our military. We're going to have like, it's like, how else would you do it? It's so crazy that this hasn't been thought of before. But when you see it, it's like, well, fuck, why else wouldn't you do that? Like, allow the experts to come in and go, hey, here's what we do in combat. Here's what our bodies have to go through and endure, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have professionals like have training programs and different things that allow them to, cool, we're going to take that context of what you gave us and we're going to help make them more effective in the battle space. And then, hey, cool. You know, then obviously F-45 is not teaching them how to shoot. They're teaching them this endurance, flexibility. All of those things are going to matter, and it's going to prevent injury on the battlefield, which makes you a better force, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's part of my ministry, right? In my journey, like you're in the real estate industry. That's part of your ministry. You get to get up and speak to people. Fitness is my ministry. 3 John 1:2 says, "Be strong in body as you are in spirit," meaning that.
Why do you have to say that when I like sugar? Now it's like I'm shaming God. Shit.
No, look, do your thing. Look, I just got to be real to me. So here's the hard dichotomy I had to realize. I was training my Marines to get ready for combat, and they weren't freaking listening. So my drill instructor hat comes back on, right?
Yeah.
And I'm wearing my Marines out before we go to combat. And I was really struggling, like, Lord, how do I balance being disciplined, making sure that they're successful, teaching them and training them, but still show them the love of God and speak life into them. And it was the 12th day of the month. We went to the church to sign our paperwork that we need to sign, our death benefits and all that before we go to Iraq. And God said, open up Proverbs 12:1. It was the 12th day of the month. And Proverbs 12:1 says, those who love discipline love knowledge. Those who hate discipline are stupid. So God reminded me, be hard on them because you're going to help them get to combat, survive combat, and come home.
And they'll thank you later. And like that's the biggest thing about leadership that I've learned, right? Is like being who I need to be in a moment without necessarily getting a positive feedback right away. Like so many things you do for young Marines, so many things we've done for people that we lead. You might not ever get a thank you. You might get it down the road. But here's one thing's for sure. Not everybody sees it the moment you're giving it. That
Yep.
doesn't mean you don't give it. If you're like, and I tell people when we talk about religion, and not to use this loosely, but the only way I can describe leadership to people that don't come from our cut is I tell people, hey, leadership nowadays is it's romantic, it's fancy, it's a position of entitlement, and it helps you sell something, whatever it is. I say leadership is a religion for me. Not to disrespect religion. It's just my way of trying to describe it, of like, hey, this isn't a fucking game. Like, people live and die in our world based off of adequate leadership. And whether someone's going to like you in a moment or not, it's bigger than that. It's combat readiness, and it's coming home, and if we could have done more and we didn't because we want everybody to like us, that's not going to feel well when you're burying Marines.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And like, so that's what I mean by a religion. It's like, hey man, doing the right thing is always the right thing, regardless of how somebody immediately feels about you in a moment. Understanding and keeping in mind the bigger picture of why you're doing it in the first place. And I just think it's so rare nowadays because a lot of folks do lack the context of like where true leadership comes from.
Yeah. So I'd like to share this with you. So I was just a guest speaker at graduating corporal's course on Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. And, like I always do, like, Lord, what do you want me to share with these young NCOs? What do you want me to impart into them? And so I went down this rabbit hole. What is leadership? And long story short, leaders, in order to become a leader, you have to listen, you have to empower, you have to advise, and you have to develop your Marines. And if you do those 4 things, you become a leader. And when you become a leader, they will reach back and be your ship towards your destiny. So that is so I've been working out this dichotomy of what is leadership and what does that look like. And the first step is to listen to people, to empower people, to advise people, and to develop them. And if you do those 4 things, you morph into a leader. And if you do those 4 things and you morph into a leader, you have the ship to help you get to where you want to go.
100%. And this is what's so fun about the Marine Corps is leadership isn't self-proclaimed. It's just not. Nowadays, you get into the entrepreneur space, everybody's a leader. Everybody's a boss. Everybody's a CEO. Everybody's a leader, and they get to say that. And like, yeah, hey, welcome to America, freedom of speech, make your own company, make whatever, call yourself a leader. Like, in the Marine Corps, you've got certain types of promotions. You got meritorious promotions. And if you are not being an adequate leader, they'll get rid of you. Or they'll remediate you in making sure that you can do said such. And if they still can't remediate you to get you to do that, you're not necessarily going to lose your rank, but you are going to lose your billet, and you're not going to lead Marines. You're going to go work in the library. You're going to go work in the armory, and I loved that accountability as far as like, if you're not proficient, then they're not going to put you in that position. And one of the best things about the Marine Corps was small unit leadership. Like when you talk about empowering, it's such an amazing word, but very few people in our civilian sector really empower. They want to micromanage by default because it makes them feel like more of an authority. When people come to them with questions, they want to answer that question because they think they're bringing value to someone by being the resource that can answer the question versus developing folks to create the freedom and the empowerment of the small unit leaders to then free up your time to build the next thing, right? Like,
yeah.
It's so powerful. And like you and I learned that at a young age when small unit leadership were promoted. They were encouraged.
Yeah. So I had this thing that I kind of created, one of my little ditties that I always, being a DI, you always come up with ditties.
Not Diddy like y'all think Diddy. Ain't no Diddy shit going down in boot camp. Not the Diddy y'all are thinking. Diddy is like a little tell-all.
Yeah. Yeah, so knowledge has no power unless it's given to somebody else. Let me give you an example.
That's a ditty.
If I am the smartest drill instructor on a drill field, and I know every drill card and I can teach every drill card, if I don't pass that on to the next generation, if I die today, that information dies with me. And we don't fulfill our responsibility as a leader because we didn't pass it on.
Here's how cool the Marine Corps is, because you say that right now on my Facebook, I can like write like a little quote or whatever at your or on your Instagram. Mine's on my Facebook. It literally says, if you aren't taking your life experiences and making people better, who cares what you've done? Literally, that's what it says, man. Like it's interesting how
so you and I are singing the same shit of music.
cut from
We
the same
care
cloth,
about
man.
people. We want to know. We want to get you there.
Yeah.
But you got to be coachable. Got to be teachable. You got to be like no matter how successful you are in life, and look, no matter how successful you are, we all need a coach. We all need a mentor. We all need somebody in our lives that are going to help protect us and surround us when we have weak moments.
And sometimes
most people don't realize this.
Sometimes the one that's protecting you is beating the shit out of you. There's
hell yeah. My wife is always giving me, put me up the ringer because she's my best friend, but she cares about me so much that she's like, baby, you shouldn't say that word. You should be careful about this. Like she's always on me, but because she loves me. And you need people in your corner that are going to be real and honest with you.
Yep.
Young Marines out there, young PFCs, you think a drill instructor's bad? Go get a wife. See how that goes. All jokes aside.
Hey, so people, because
100%.
I have videos, hundreds of millions of views of videos on YouTube, TikTok, and all this stuff, right? People naturally think that that's who I am 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Man, that was over 20 years ago. If I'm still yelling and screaming like I did, look, if I came home and treated my wife the way that I would treat recruits, I wouldn't be married. I've been married for my wife and I have been together for 23 years. Been married for 21.
But like for Halloween,
she's my best friend.
What about Halloween? You don't want to put that old smoky back on, and like when Halloween little trick-or-treaters like come up to your door, you don't want to fuck them up. Oh,
of course
hell
I do.
yeah.
I mean, I'm always at the ready.
That's awesome.
That would be the best prank, right? Is like have a drill, like just be a drill instructor on the, like you think goblins and skeletons are scary for Halloween. Just have a drill instructor answer a door for kids at Halloween, right?
Staff Sergeant, I'm curious, man, how has the, like your deliverability, right? Or your delivery rather, what was that transition like when you were coming out of the military into civilian world, right? And I know you said there was a 10-year, span there where you're still working with veterans and stuff, obviously doing something different. But being in like corporate space, F-45, obviously that's not the guy that you were. But what have been like some of the biggest differences in, or just rather observations of dealing with corporate people versus obviously like young Marines? I imagine there's quite a bit.
Yeah, so the hardest part about getting out, and I'll say this again, I always pray like, Lord, what is that? Because when I'm talking to service members, I'm like trying to help them transition out of the military.
Yeah.
And I've come to a consensus. The hardest part about transitioning is when I was a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps, I had a platoon of 40 people that depended on me to show up, lead by example, set the pace, take them out for PT. Long story short, when you get out, you go from having 40 people depending on you to lead them in the right direction to now I just got to lead myself.
Oh shit.
And then that's the hardest part. Yeah. Leading yourself is the hardest part because you don't have other people looking at you, which forces you to stand up and be the good leader that you want to be.
Yeah.
So I give the analogy that it's kind of like parenting. When you're tired, you're sick, you don't want to do anything, but your kids need to go to school. You need to pick them up. You need to take them to practice. You show up regardless if you want to or not. The same thing when you had your Marines, you showed up regardless if you wanted to or not. When you leave the military, there is nobody but you against you. And that is the hardest part.
And they're not showing up for themselves.
That's where most service members, that is the
hardest part, bro. Not to cut you off. Like the love and one of the greatest things about the Marine Corps is you're a part of something bigger than yourself that you love more than yourself. And then you get out. And now you have to show up for yourself. And it was never about you in the first place. It was, I would sacrifice for you. I would die for you. I would die for my Marines. I would die for my country, like whatever that thing is for you, right? Like, and it's always there first, man. Like you're not even touching your own gear, your own anything until like Marines are done, right? Like, and then you get out. And it's got nothing to do with anyone but yourself. And you don't necessarily know how to show up for self, because showing up for self was like your direct, whether you're worth a shit or not, had everything to do with how well you took care of everybody else. Like if they were grading me, Sergeant Grimes, right? It's like they're grading my squad. They're not grading me. They're great. Like they don't give a shit about my PFT, my physical fitness test, my combat fitness test, how well I can shoot, like all those things are great and they're standards and they're expected. However, they're grading me by the performance of my squad during training evolutions, live fire evolutions. How well are you guys performing? How well are you guys going to perform in combat? If you're put in a combat situation, they're grading me off of that. That's what mattered most, right? It's like you give your all to the development of your squad. And like, yeah, you stay in shape in the Marine Corps by default because your squad's also looking at you and you're not going to be a piece of shit, right? Like that.
Right.
But again, then you get out and it's like, no one gives.
Yeah, it's just you.
It's just you. No one gives a fuck about you. No one gives a fuck about your story. And like you're awkwardly alone, man. You're this race car that's just, you're not on a track anymore. Like it just,
Exactly.
you're completely out of your own element and you got to lean into self, but you've just never really learned how to take care, like how to lean into self when you're in.
So for the service members out there that are getting ready to transition, listening to this, I've discovered 3 things that will help you make sure that you don't fall on your sword when you get out. Number one is when you are getting out of the military, you need to make sure that you file and get your VA disability and compensation. That means 6 months before you get out, you can file your VA claim. And the day that you're out of the military, you can be compensated for your VA disability. Number 2 is join a DoD-approved Skillbridge program, because the last 6 months of your military career, you can join a Skillbridge program so they can train you, educate you, like we're doing at F45. You don't have to do a fitness program. There's over 5,000 companies that have a Skillbridge program. The government pays you while a new company trains you, educates you, and prepares you to be considered for employment. And the third thing is you need a community. You need your tripod, your VA disability, a job, and a community support. If you have those 3 things when you get out of the military, you will not fall on your sword. And for me, my community is my fitness community. I get up every day, I work out, I come home, I take a shower, I bring my wife coffee, and I get behind my desk and go to work. But those 3 things, if you're in the middle of getting out of the military, VA disability, get a job, and make sure that last one is taken care of, just as important as the first one.
Amazing. I almost want to have you on again, Staff Sergeant. We're going to have you on again, like in the future. If you can ever come speak for some of our real estate events, we do a lot of like, as you can tell, like with me, yes, we teach real estate, but there's a lot of, mindset and leadership that bleeds into our real estate stuff just because of my background. And having you out, if there's something I could ever do for you, we'd love to have it. We're gonna have your social media all over on our links. We're gonna make sure we got plenty of snippets for social media. But anything Eli and I can do for you from a production side, or just if there's something I can come out and do for you, it's just great to be around winners. It's great to be around Marines. Yep. I'm glad you're not fucking me up and you're just nice guy now, right? Like it is, and it's fun. But man, what a great podcast. I know we got to be respectful of your time, but those last 3 things are huge. I'm going to make sure that we get those out for guys as well. But last thing, right? Like where can people find you best if they want to reach out to you or communicate with you? Where are you best found?
Yeah, so all my social media handles are at SSGT Nichols.
Okay.
No.
And behind the scenes, I'm rebranding staffsergeantnichols.com. I've had the website for many years. I have tens of millions of views on social media, but I'm rebranding staffsergeantnichols.com to be a military hub where my slogan is the past, the present, the future. The past is veterans. How do I help veterans with their VA disability? The present, how do I help you transition out of the military so you don't fall on your sword? And the future is, how do I help future servicemen and women prepare for and join the right branch of service for them? So next week, my website will be live. Right now, I got my old website live, which is not, it doesn't have a lot of information on it. But my new website, I've worked on it for the last 3 months. I'm creating a military community hub where you want to join the military, go to staffsergeantnichols.com. You want to get out of the military, go to staffsergeantnichols.com. Yeah, so on and so forth. And God is this is my ministry. This is what I'm called to do. There's 18 million servicemen, 18 million veterans. 200,000 new service members every year, and 200,000 get out every year. So there's so many of us.
You could have a whole
network,
man. Like you could have a whole network on that website, or just as an industry of just like subject matter experts in so many different fields that if they're coming to your website, they've even got resources of like maybe people who to reach out to if they're looking at certain industries, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Yeah. So I created my wife and I created a consulting company, and she helps other companies create a DoD approved Skillbridge program. So those companies can help transitioning service members become interns at companies. So, for example, in real estate, I don't know if you guys have a Skillbridge program or not.
Let's do it.
But
yeah, we don't.
yeah, you could work with my wife. She can help you guys get DoD approval. And then when service members are getting out and they want to go into real estate, they find your company, they become interns for 3 to 6 months. The government pays them.
We've got online universities, we've got YouTube courses, we've got online universities, we've got so much training online for realtors. Like a veteran gets out, they could be getting paid by the government while going through all of our online education that we've already gone through, in addition to the real estate education that they would be getting to just set them up for success. Brother, I'll be super curious about a pipeline like that, and happy to work with you guys, and whatever we can do to just proximity, stay around you guys would be amazing.
Yeah. And then, like, I'm going to be in Vegas, not next Friday, but the following Friday, the 25th of October, at a military conference, MCOM. And I'm speaking specifically about our F-45 Skillbridge program.
Yeah.
I've saved our F-45 network over $8 million in labor cost savings because the government pays them while we train them.
That's amazing.
To make sure that they're a good fit. So if I can get this message out where if you love service members and you say you support service members, how can we stand up a DoD approved Skillbridge program? So when the service member goes to the DoD website and they want to get into fitness or construction or real estate, they search up those keywords, and the companies that are approved show up and they can apply. It's a no-brainer. 200,000 service members leave the military every year. Why not every company that says they support service members? They should have a DoD approved Skillbridge program to help service members.
100%. And we broker with EXP, right? 90,000 agents, pretty big company. And we know our owner, we know their board of directors. Like we're pretty high up with them. And if that even has to come from like an EXP level, like not hard at all to get in contact with them. And we could even front it for them as far as like just whatever mission we have to do with you guys to get it done. But what a great idea.
Yeah. I love it. We're definitely talking about that.
100%.
Yeah.
Any last funny stories are like, Eli, you okay?
Man,
we got
to do. Oh man, he sent me some videos the other day, and just like your videos, and and I got off that. I called him. I was like, man, how'd you turn out as normal as you did, bro? Like no idea how you turned out.
I showed him fucking you guys up. There's this kid getting ready to fall over and pass out, dehydrated, and you guys are in his face. Like you guys are
like till we die.
No, you're not.
Damn
no, you're not. And like this kid was for sure hurting. He wasn't faking, and you're faking. Like I'm gonna get the goddamn training out of you, and I'm just like, and Eli watches that, and he's like, "How are you so normal?" I'm like, I don't know. Like you're right, Eli. I'm a victim.
But this is what I need our servicemen and women to realize. Like you don't have to get out and be that hard charger.
No.
That's something that you put in your cargo pocket. If and when you need it, you whip it out and you make it happen.
That's
right?
it.
I'm a DI. At the end of the day, I can show up to the recruit depot right now in civilian clothes and march them down the recruit parade deck, and I could take them out and train them and educate them and empower.
Yeah.
But if you don't know me, if you don't know who Michael Nichols is or Staff Sergeant Nichols, I just look like an average Joe walking throughout the community. I'm undercover insurgent.
But when you're training Marines, like you're training Marines to go to war, like it does need to be like that. We laugh about it because Eli's my partner in business, and honestly, they're just funny ass, amazing stories from our history, and they're awesome. But they also served a purpose, and it's all just to be funny. And of course, I'm normal, Eli.
Of course.
I'm gonna submit a VA disability to the VA, like, well, what's your disability? I'm like, drill instructors.
Hey, I don't think we talked about this, but when I was a DI, 9/11 happened. I think I was on my fourth.
Let's talk about this.
I was in transition between my third and fourth cycle. And let's just say 9/11 happened on a Tuesday. We do workups for picking up our platoon on Friday, right? And so Tuesday happened. 9/11 happened. It took us hours to get on base, but once we got on base, we knew that we were going to go to war, and we knew that the way that we train recruits, my first 3 cycles, and the way that we're going to train the recruits from this point forward, completely changed because we're in a wartime. And let's just say the intensity the testosterone went off the charts.
Yeah. And it stayed off the chart because then when I come in, I'm getting drill instructors that had just gotten off their first tour or second tour, and then they were now on the drill field. And not only did they have the same perspective you did of like, hey, this is real now, they just got back from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I was a DI, so you got to remember, when I joined, when I was a DI, I had 3-4 ribbons, right?
Yeah.
And then when you saw your DIs, they probably had 7 or 8 because they already went to combat and came back.
Sure.
I had 3 or 4 ribbons as a DI, but I ended up with 9 or 10 ribbons. But when I was a DI, it was during peacetime. There was no real combat scenarios really happened. Yes, little things here and there.
Yeah.
But we weren't really in real time combat. We knew from this point forward we were going to be in combat for a long time. And we just turned up the intensity. We pushed these kids to the point of failure. And let's just say across the board, the standard was risen. Most organizations lower the standard to make sure.
Sure.
The Marine Corps amplified the standards and tried to weed out everybody that wouldn't be a success in out in the fleet.
Force multipliers, man, if they're not that, you can't have them, because having more bodies is maybe that's communist China, and they'll throw 3 million people at a front line, but that's not how we operate in the military with us. But no, it is interesting. And man, we love and appreciate you. We appreciate your time. I'm sure you and I will be connecting offline. If there's anything you need from us, man, we've got marketing teams, we've got website developers that are all in-house. My wife's one of them. Anything we can do to help. But I'm definitely interested in this bridge to help veterans maybe get into real estate if they're choosing that path. We could definitely help a ton of them with everything that we've built. But we need to play some more of this music on our way out of here.
Let's do it.
Staff Sergeant, appreciate your time, brother. Let's connect soon. Eli's going to have this up probably, I think, by Monday.
Monday, yep.
This will be released on this coming Monday. It'll be up and ready to go. We'll make sure we get you all the content from it.
All right.
Right on.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Semper Fi.
Semper
Eli,
Fi.
Thank you. Very nice meeting you, sir.
Likewise.
He doesn't talk much, huh? It's he just lets me run my mouth today with the
It was
with
good.
the Marine
We need a part 2 though, for sure.
100%.
All right.
100%.
Day 1, $0.
We're out of here.
I'ma slip it on down and turn it up. Southbound and we're trailblazing, yeah, but and a posse dirty, filthy like a spit cut. Got the moms at the gate bringing big guns. Raw records be the steak, we the A1. Speak up and we know where we came from. Welcome to the posse, let me hear your long cut.